started. So we're going to talk about year-end close in Dynamics GP. If you have seen these sessions before, it's pretty much similar. There's a couple new slides this year. I'm Devon Southall. I have been a GP consultant for 19 years now. I work in what we call our North Office, which was formerly Software Solutions Group. I have a background in accounting and small business, so I have done this a lot, and I sort of come at it from a business perspective. So some of what I'm going to recommend is not official Microsoft recommendations, but I'm going to explain why, and we know it works because we've done it for years and years with our clients. If you go back on YouTube, I've done this presentation almost every single year, and it's pretty similar. The wardrobe changes. Which actually this year I'm wearing my Innovative Cloud Solutions, and then I went to a convention and I have my GP Ride or Die t-shirt. That's this year. Last year I think it was my NASA space sweatshirt. All right, so let's get started. So before we get into anything these days, we've got to talk about GP lifecycle. I don't know if you know, but Microsoft has officially announced an end of life for GP. The end of life for GP, their last hotfix service pack is going to be September of 2029, and the last security updates is going to be April of 2030. What we want you to know is that ICS is here to support you now and into the future. We know that this is a big change, but that's a long time away, to be honest, and we're here to support you through GP. We've got a whole ton of GP clients, and we're not the only partner. There's several large partners who have made 10 and 15-year promises. So don't fret, but do start planning, and feel free to reach out. We've been having these conversations with clients about what makes best sense for them, okay? Talking about that, you may see some other dates, which is April of 2025 and April of 2026. That has to do with purchasing new software of GP, not additional users, but if you weren't currently licensed for GP because you've been using an old expired license, that's where that comes into play. If you are using an old expired license of GP and you're not current on your renewal, please contact us right away if you're continuing to use it, because you're going to want to get that fixed before you can't, okay? Again, let us know if you've got questions on any of that. So here's the timetable from Microsoft, and again, those are those 2029 and 2031 dates that people have been talking about. We also, as a company, do not just support Microsoft Dynamics GP, though that is exclusively what I do. We have two other cloud software ERPs that we support and implement. Microsoft Dynamics BC, or which is the mid-market version of Dynamics 365, and then Acumatica ERP, which is another cloud-based software. Got questions on that? We would be glad to help you all. But remember, even if you read, like a lot of Microsoft has said, oh, it's a upgrade to BC, it's not. It is a completely different accounting software. It is an implementation, and it's not simple. So it's things to think about. All right, but let's talk about GP, because that's the software you're using. All right, today's agenda. We're going to talk about creating a new fiscal year because it is not patently obvious. It is easy to screw up. We're going to talk about the various module year-end closes: accounts receivable, accounts payable, tax, inventory, and fixed assets. We're going to talk about the financial year-end close, the biggie that people need to do. And then we're going to talk about payables, 1099s, printing, and e-filing. Okay. Now, if you use a fiscal year and not a calendar year, the rest of this conversation, I'm going to assume that those two are the same for you guys, that your year-end close and your fiscal year-end close are the same. But if your fiscal year is not calendar, it's not going to end on December 31st. There are two different close processes. Basically, your calendar is your purchasing your sales, you're purchasing your payroll, your fiscal, whenever your fiscal year ends, you're going to do those other closes, okay? And feel free, again, to ask if you've got questions on any of that. All right, so our first demo is creating a new fiscal year, Okay, so we're going to do this in the fiscal periods window. I'm going to talk you through it, and then I'm going to go pop open my GP and see what year I have to create because I got a lot of years created in there. It's in your fiscal periods window. The tricky bit is that you're actually going to type in that drop down field. That's not intuitive. It doesn't look like what you're supposed to do. And then it's going to set up the first day and last day to be the dates it expects. If those aren't coming in right, you stop, you panic, and you call us. Don't keep moving forward, okay? Then you're going to press calculate, and you're going to do it. So hold on. Let me go to my GP here. I'm going to pull up the fiscal period window. There we go. And I am going to drag that down to where you guys are seeing it. So this is the fiscal period window. This is the window that those are the paths to get to it. And yes, we'll send out the slides. Just let us know. First step is go to your drop down and see what years you have created. And this is when I lean forward because you're down here. So I have 2028. That's my last year created. And you can see it's going through December 31st of 2028. So in my hypothetical, I'm going to create 2029. So I'm going to type right in here 2029, and I'm going to press tab, and notice that it came up with the right dates here. If it doesn't, panic, stop. Okay, so when you put this in, you want this window to be blank and dates to come up that look right. If that's the case, you're doing good. You hit calculate here, and it's going to figure out what dates you should have. You can double check these. You can change the periods if you want, and you can hit OK, and you are done. But that's the steps to it. At least once or twice every single year, we have customers call us in a panic because they have screwed that up. They have changed the dates on an old year. Like, bad things can happen if you're not careful. So feel free. We've got a couple customers that just always call us and say, help me create the new year, please. We'll be glad to do that. Just email support. They'll help you. Okay? All right. Moving on. There we go. Once you close your year, can you do transactions? Oops, I forgot to change the year. Well, 2025. Sorry, I forgot typo. Can you do transactions in 2025? Yes, you can do it even after you've closed. The system allows us to roll down or go back, except for payroll and fixed assets. So those are the ones that you can't do past transactions. It's not preventing you from posting. It's just what goes. And we'll talk about that in more detail. All right. Will history be deleted when I do any of these year-end closes? The answer is no, as long as the maintain history checkboxes are selected. So some of these are module specific. So general ledger, bank rec, and payroll are module wise, versus vendors, customers, items, and tax are for each of the transactions. If you have a whole bunch and you want us to double check that they're all set for history, just let us know. But a lot of these you can run a smart list. So you can pull up a vendor smart list and add the history checkboxes and make sure they're all yes. Always a good practice to do anyways, but as long as you do that, your year-end close is not going to delete any history. Okay? All right, before doing any year-end close or routine, you want to get all of your users out of GP and the related programs. You want to back up the database. You want to run whatever your routine is and only let the users back in if the process was successful. Some of these routines will crash if there's a problem, and if it crashes, there's no easy way to recovery. Microsoft's solution is go to your backup. You made a backup, right? And a lot of them will actually pop up and prompt you, you made a backup, right? They're not joking about this, so please follow those best practices. Again, at least once a year, we've got to fix something because somebody closed while people were in and bad things happened. Knock on wood, I don't think we had one last year, but it just happens. So again, and feel free, if you don't know how to do a backup or your IT isn't available, that's where we can come in. We can get on your server and work with IT, or we already have access. Okay. All right. So since we're already getting these users out, great time to do housekeeping. So I've got some suggestions here, and we're actually starting a new process this year if we're assisting you. We're actually going to have a checklist where you can check off the housekeeping that you want to have happen in your database. Housekeeping is super important if you're using GP. If you've used GP a long time, it's good to clean that up. Housekeeping becomes super important if you're going to switch to another ERP system, because one of the first things they want to do is make sure all your data is right, or your customers right, or your vendors right, and having this housekeeping done is critical. So it's something we're going to talk about a lot more on our webinars and stuff, is housekeeping. Okay, so some routines that you might want to do is the badly named paid transaction removal. That's a receivables. It's not actually paid transaction removal, well, as long as you have maintain history checkbox on. It is move to history. So if you've got a customer that you've pulled up and you check those boxes to look at work open in history, things do not move to history unless you've run this routine. It's something that you should be doing bare minimum annually, maybe quarterly. That's up to you. But I went into a customer the other day and they haven't run it for 10 years. That's just craziness. Lock those transactions down so people can't change it. It makes it more stable. Okay. The next thing is remove completed purchase orders, also badly named. It takes those POs and moves them to history. Both of those routines don't happen automatically. You have to do them. Okay. There is a routine that's on the books called financial period consolidation routine. We strongly do not recommend doing this because what it does is combine those journal entries into one, and now you've got all these unbalanced journal entries. Then if you end up with a real unbalanced journal entry, we can't find them. And honestly, at this point, data is cheap. There's no reason to blow data away, and that one does that. So just a recommendation. All right, another thing that comes up if you've been in the GP world a long time is GP utilities for check links and reconcile. And I've done this for a long time. I've been doing this for 19 years. So back when I started, Microsoft's solution for everything was check links and reconcile. There's a problem, run check links, run reconcile. And they've kind of backed off on that. Really now, best practices is only to run this if you have a specific data issue. Don't just run it proactively. Reason being is that it tells you after the fact what it did. And I really think that some of the reports don't tell us all the changes. But I can't prove that one. Anyways. So the recommendation is to only do it when you have a specific data issue, when there's a specific problem, and maybe just do it narrow and do it in a test company first. And check your data very carefully. It changes financial data and permanently removes records. And this isn't necessarily what you want to do. You know, it can throw your GL off, for example, or your GL to your subledger off. So again, let me know if you've got any questions on this. I just always want to talk about it because you can see, if you're looking at older advice 10, 15 years ago, you'll see it everywhere. Okay. All right. So that's general information. Let's talk about the specific module closes. So almost every module in GP has its own close, different than the financial close we'll talk about in a minute. So the first ones is receivables, so AR, payables, AP, and tax. Each of these have a module close. And the only thing these module closes do is take the numbers that are currently sitting in year-to-date buckets, these summary year-to-date number buckets, and dump those numbers into a prior year-to-date bucket and zero out the year-to-date. It doesn't do any aggregation beyond that. It doesn't lock off periods. It doesn't affect your 1099s. It just does those. And these particular fields can be seen on smart lists, a couple inquiry windows, and a couple summary reports. So we have clients who have never run these closes and didn't notice. We have clients that run these closes at various times. Best practices, if you want to run it, is to do it somewhere around that year-end time, December 30th, January 2nd. Now, if you do it then and you're a standard client who keeps payables open, straight payables for a couple days, the numbers are not going to be exactly right. So you have to decide, is that good enough for your purposes, or do you want those numbers to be perfect? If you want those numbers to be perfect using your GL posting dates, we have scripts to true those numbers up from the actual transactional details, and we would be glad to run those for you, and we have a lot of clients who want to do that. That's really up to you. And again, if you've got any questions on that, I'm just going to pop open my GP real quick and grab a smart list. Come on, grab a smart list. I run GP standalone on my computer, so it is not always the speediest thing, and I'm always impatient. Almost there. So here I am on the vendor smart list, and if I come up here to columns, which is gonna, oh, it actually opened there, and I hit add, we can see all of these life to date, year to date. So these are the numbers that it changes. And 1099 is a bad example. That's a weird, but here, amount billed, paid, and so on. These are the numbers I'm talking about. These are the numbers that are literally going to get shoved over. That's all it does. So that's really up to you. If you want them to be perfect, let us know. We can run those scripts for you, which will reset those summary numbers from the actual transactional details. Unfortunately, these module closes don't realize that GP is multi-period. Just what they are, people. All right, what about my 1099s? So if you, this is where I deviate from Microsoft. If you go look at the Microsoft Payables close instructions, it says run all your 1099s, then do your close, and then move on. I don't know why people have not revised them. GP has been solidly multi-period in accounts payable since I started 19 years ago. That just doesn't make sense. Your 1099s are independent to your close process. They always have been. So I don't know why Microsoft's instructions say to do that. Got nothing, people. So you can run your payables before or after your close. If you never run your close, your 1099s are going to work fine. It's completely independent. So there we go. And we'll talk about 1099s a little later. All right, let's talk about the inventory close, because that's one very particularly that I want people to be very careful of. This close will remove data if you check the boxes. So it has that same date criteria of everyone else. Run it somewhere between December 30th and January 2nd. Unfortunately, we do not have scripts from Microsoft to fix this one. So this is the one, if you're going to run any of them you want to do around then. We can fix one of the numbers, the quantity sold, but there's a lot of other numbers that it does that we just haven't written scripts. It hasn't been important for anyone. But if you check these boxes to remove the discontinued items, remove your sold lot attributes, and remove your sold receipts, it will purge that data out of your database. And some of this stuff like lot attributes, that's really critical lot tracing data. So be super careful that you know the intricacies of your database before you check those boxes. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. And again, the inventory close, it will work fine. I think there's one report that doesn't work right if you don't run the year-end close, but I don't know if I've ever seen a customer actually using that report. It's some weird turnover report. Anyways, again, feel free to ask us if you've got questions. Throw questions in the questions if you have any. I don't see any. I think it would pop up. Hold on, let me close this. Yeah, I don't think I can see any. All right, keep moving. Fixed assets. So fixed assets is the one, well, it's that and payroll. I'm like, yeah. Go read the Microsoft instructions and follow them word for word. This is the module. I'm like, nope, you got to follow the Microsoft instructions, okay? It is a hard close. There are very specific reports that have to be run before and afterwards. So if you have fixed assets, read that knowledge base. They're now Learn links, I've linked to them. They're now permalinks. They don't change every year. But definitely follow that module to the letter. Same if you use payroll, you're going to want to follow those Microsoft instructions to the letter. Okay. All right, so this is our first pause because we're going to go to the GL close next. So does anyone have any questions that they want to throw in the questions about the module closes, ARAP, GL, oh, sorry, no, not GL, ARAP, tax, inventory, fixed assets, or payroll, which we're not going to get into because we don't tend to have a lot of customers having those, or they have questions because I've done it a bunch. All right. Any questions? I see Elise in the chat. I see no questions. All right, we're going to keep moving. Get you out of here quick, people. All right, so let's talk about the financial year-end close, okay? This is the biggie. This is the one that everyone must do. What does it do? It creates that beginning balance entry for your balance sheet accounts and your retained earnings. So before that happens, your reports and management reporter and your summary inquiry in GP doesn't actually have the right balance because it doesn't know the start. It also deletes any unused inactive accounts unless you select otherwise. Select otherwise, people. And it is a hard close on the year before last. And oh God, Elise, I forgot these dates too. So if we're closing 2024, that means that we no longer can put entries in 2023. Now, this isn't as bad as it used to be because there is now that reverse close button. And so, you know, we've reverse closed like 10 and 15 years for people at this point. It used to be a big deal. Now it's like just more work. And if you're on a current version, we can reverse close without heaving everybody out of every database. Yay, Microsoft! They added that fix. Okay, so let's talk about it. Can you make entries to the year after close? So if I've closed 2024, can I still make those final auditor adjustments that come through? Yes, you can, as long as we've allowed that in setup. So under the general ledger setup, you can have allow posting to history. That means that we can go back and put those entries, those final auditor adjustments into 2024. You also can do it in the subledgers. It's just whether you've opened your fiscal periods or not. What happens when you're doing the postings anywhere is the general ledger, the GL posting journals kind of look like they're hiccuping, especially if you're dating it the last day of the year. So if you're dating it December 31st, it looks like you get two entries. If you're dating it something like July or November, it looks cleaner because you get the July entry and then you get the December 31st entry. What it's doing is the entry you asked for, and then it's actually doing a beginning balance entry, which is dated the last day of the year, but it's actually in that beginning balance period of the current year. Okay. So just don't panic. Another support call we get a lot. That's true. No, you were posting to the prior year. So that's what happens if you post to that prior year. So generally, oh yeah, that's my next slide. When to do the financial year end closing. Anytime is possible. We've actually had people that closed by accident 2 years. But the best time is after your subledgers are completed for a year. So you really want to finish your payables, your receivables, your fixed assets, all that other stuff. And then have the bulk of, so you've done closing December, you've got final December numbers, you're just waiting on auditors adjustments or something, you've done your bank recs. That's really your best time, and it needs to be before you need to run those January financial statements, assuming, again, your calendar. So most people close early to mid-February. That's when we get the bulk of the people asking us to help them close. All right, important close steps. Number 1, check your account posting types. This is the field that tells GP, should I bring a balance forward or should I blow it to retained earnings? And we're going to go into a demo for that, okay? Post all your transactions. It will warn you if you have some unposted pending journal entries, like, what the heck, you got these journal entries, shouldn't you post these? You don't have to post all the transactions, but it's just better. You have to get everyone out of GP. We have to make sure that there's sufficient free hard space on the GP server. That is the primary reason why somebody's year-end close crashes, is it runs out of space. It actually takes a lot of space. It's 3 times your GL table to move it around and get it to the year end. And so if you're doing log backups, it can get pretty big. Then make backups and archive them. It's a fabulous time. We've got to make that backup anyways in case it crashes for Microsoft support recommendations and our strong recommendation. But it's a great time to make that backup and save it for disaster recovery. And that's another thing that we're going to have on our checklist this year, is ask people about disaster recovery and do they want us to make these copies, and talk to your IT people about getting that off site. Disaster recovery is a big deal, whether it is a hurricane, a flood, or a virus lockout. We have 2 to 3 customers a year now that are ransomware, virused, etc. And so disaster recovery is a big thing that we're trying to make sure that you have on your radar. Okay. Next thing is, do not end task on your close. Microsoft GP goes not responding because the computer thinks it's not talking to anything. It may be churning very hard, but your computer doesn't think it's doing anything. It's pretty common for GP to go not responding. It pretty much, I can guarantee, if you've got a long close, it's going to say not responding. It's working, really, trust me. This is why it's good to keep track of how long your close took in prior years. And as long as you haven't implemented multi-currency in the meanwhile, it should take about the same, as long as your volume's about the same. Closes take anywhere between 5 minutes and an hour and a half, again, depending on your volume and whether you use multi-currency. Multi-currency like triples the amount of time it takes. Check your close before letting people back into GP. And Microsoft also recommends a second backup at the end. We really haven't generally made that a practice. We haven't really found any reason for that second backup. If we need to go back to the disaster recovery first backup, we'll just close it again. It's all good. And if there's any issues, don't just keep moving. We need to restore that backup and try again, maybe in a test company or off hours. If it has crashed, you cannot use the reverse historical year to fix it. It doesn't crash very often, but we have had customers crash. We've also had customers that the power went out. You know, this stuff happens. All right, any questions on that? And then I'm going to go into a demo on the posting types. So I'm going to pop open my smart list while you all are thinking about questions. All right. So I'm here in SmartList, SmartView if you have it. I'm going to go to Financial here, and I'm going to go to Accounts here. This is an off-the-shelf SmartList that everyone should have. Under Accounts, by default, it has our posting type, and it has our account number. So what we can easily do is put a couple little filters here. Oh, now I've really messed it up. Hang tight. There we go. Oh, actually, I know what I'm doing. Yeah, here we go. So we're going to put a main account segment is less than, my break is 3,000, and a posting type is equal to profit and loss. And then I'm going to do the reverse. Main segment is greater than, say, 29999, wherever your break is, and your posting type. And so what that looks like then, hold on, I've lost my cursor. There we go. As we come up here to our search, I'm one that doesn't have my, so if we come here to columns, you can always add main segment, should be available. There's our main account segment. Hopefully your main account segment is really your main account segment. Occasionally it's not. And in that case, your segment names would be what you go find here. It's not the end of the world that it says that, but it's, so I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to hit OK. So now that I've got my main account segment here, I can go put my search criteria, which has popped in the other window. And so I'm going to go main account segment is less than $3,000, and my posting type is equal to profit and loss. And luckily, I don't have anything screwed up. If I go, and then you would do the reverse, obviously. If I go 2,000, you'll see some accounts that actually are really balance sheets. Oh, yeah, I don't have anything messed up. I want to go the other way. This is the demos. There you go. Anyway, so that's the best way to hear. Now, some clients just prefer to just run your accounts and just sort them and just eyeball it. That's another way. But if you have an account set as a balance sheet and it's really a profit and loss, it's going to bring that balance forward. Yep, and we've got a hand. Yes. Yep, we'll be right back after on that question.
Okay, just wanted to make sure you saw it.
I did, thank you. So if you have your posting types wrong, there used to be this convoluted process that Microsoft had us go through. Now the solution is undo your close and reclose it after the accounts are set up correctly. All right, so Al's question is, closing ledger, please repeat about the soft close since we have to wait a few months into 2025 to post any final audit adjustments. Exactly. So let me move this window. And let me go back a few slides. So my recommendation in that scenario is this part. Can you still make entries to the year after it's closed? Yes. So generally my recommendation is when you're basically done with your entries for December, you've got your bank rec done, you've done that December financial statements, that's when you want to do your close. Okay. And then when you get those final audit adjustments, all you need to do is go into your fiscal period window, reopen the financial period so that you can do that posting, make your posting entries, post them, and then reclose the period. So let's be clear. I'm opening up the fiscal periods window. If I go to the right window, tools, company, setup, fiscal periods. The close we are talking about is not this window. The close, sorry, it's not displaying. The close we are talking about is, sorry, I cannot navigate and talk anymore. Used to be able to navigate and talk, now I can't. Here we go. Oh, I've lost my checkboxes. My checkboxes are supposed to be here. So these checkboxes that are invisible is what allows you to post or not post, even in your closed years. The close we're talking about is what's establishing our financial summary. And so they're two very different things. And so our soft close would be, so this beginning balance here. Our soft close is doing our check boxes like we do every month. Our hard close, oh, now I've got it asked backwards. You know what I mean. So to do your beginning balance, you're going to do that somewhere in January, February. And then when you get those final audit adjustments, you're going to go into GP's fiscal periods. You're going to reopen from a fiscal period standpoint for posting those entries, and then you're going to move forward. Sorry, brain freeze. Let me know if you've got any questions on that. Did I make that clear to everyone now? I got a thumbs up. Thank you. All right, let's get back to the slide we were at. All right, so we've checked our posting types on our smart list. So let's show you the year-end closing screen. So Microsoft, one of the solutions they added a few years ago was a progress bar. Yay. So you get a progress bar. It is not a logarithmic, it hops, but at least it gives you something. You have this checkbox to maintain your inactive accounts. I always check the inactive accounts and all inactive accounts. It's up to you, but generally those inactives were added for a reason and have never been used. There is your button to reverse your close here. Again, same rules. You should have a backup. You should have everyone out. Just don't be willy-nilly it. And don't press the close year button twice. Why do I have it on here? Because it's happened. If you've got a little company and you don't have a lot of history, it works fast. And so that report that spits out, you can only get once. When you reprint it, it's actually the exact opposite. So if you really want the report, you want to grab it. But I mean, you have the entries. You don't really need the report. And then after you close, you want to check it. Was there any errors in processing? Hang tight, restore to backup. Is your retained earnings entry correct? Does your trial balance total to zero? Microsoft actually recommends running your financial reports before and after. We've really never felt any need to that. If you didn't get any errors and your retained earnings are correct, you're good to go. But that's up to you. And now you might want to go into that fiscal periods window and actually make it so that people can't do postings. Because remember, you can always post to one closed year. So in addition to actually doing the close and creating the entry, you want to lock people's posting ability down via the fiscal periods window. And again, can't say it enough. If there's a problem, we want to restore to backup. Okay? All right. So that is the end of the fiscal year end or the financial year end closing. We're going to get into 1099s next. So this is our next pause. Any questions? Beautiful. All right. We can take more questions at the end. All right. So let's talk about the 1099s. The 1099 window, purchase routines, print 1099s. So there is the print form, and this is your edit list. Oh, sorry. This is your edit list. They renamed those a couple years ago. We also can build a smart list, and most clients at this point have the smart list because that goes to the next point. So hang tight. There we go. All right, and so what forms you're going to print on, I actually have another slide. We'll get to that in just a second. So let's talk about e-filing because we are now past the point that basically everyone needs to e-file. I don't know anyone who doesn't. I mean, I guess 10 you can send in, but GP is not going to add e-file to the product. They've been very definitive about that. Sorry, too bad, so sad. There are a bunch of third-party solutions. You also can use the IRS website itself. You just have to put them in packets. No more than, I don't remember. It's on our blah blah. I have words. It's on our blog posting. Elise, can you throw the blog post link in the chat for me, please? So on our blog posting. So if you don't want to use a third-party product, we have some instructions on there to remind you you've got to go get your IRS number ahead of time and have that available for when you go to e-file, and you've got to do them in packets if you've got a whole bunch of them. The third-party solutions don't have those problems. You can just go directly through them. So feel free to look that. We've got all sorts of recommendations on there. But you will need a smart list for data export. And unfortunately, Microsoft wrote that smart list where the year is hard-coded. And we're going to try to tweak that this year so that you don't have to go to us every year to update the smart list. I haven't done that yet, but that's on my list. And so we should have a perma link for you. But if you got the smart list last year, you're going to have to call us to get it updated at least one more time. I apologize. I didn't realize that that's what Microsoft had done. And you do not want to use any smart list that's under vendors, vendor address, or payables transactions. Those are not the right 1099 fields. So if you've got any questions, please ask us before you assume you've got the right data, okay? So let's talk about the 1099 changes. Depending on what version of GP you're on is whether you need to go order pre-printed forms or whether the forms can print with the boxes for you, okay? If you're on GP 26 or later, this means that you've probably done an upgrade in the last year or two because we're on 28 18.7 at this point. You have NECs and 1099s separate, and both of them print from payables on blank paper and draw all the boxes for you. If you're on any of the older versions, you can see here which ones are blank papers and which ones you're going to have to go buy, the 1099 miscellaneous or the rest. If you have some of these older versions, notice the stars. You may have to call us to update that hard-coded year on it. Or you might need us to help you run the two different versions. So very important to look at what version of GP you're on. And this chart is also on the blog that Elise put in the chat. So grab that, okay? Keep in mind, our team is more than willing to help hold your hand through the 1099 process. We do it a lot. But if you're using pre-printed forms, you need to purchase the forms from some sort of office supply company, and there's an alignment when you're printing a pre-printed form. You get this extra little thing on the print icon where you can ooch the alignment around. So print one, see if it's right, hold it up to the window, and figure out which way you have to adjust it. Okay. So that's 1099s. Remember that if when you run that smart list, the data is wrong, there are routines for updating 1099s. So the transactions, whether a transaction should be 1099 is captured during transaction entry. So if you have to go change a vendor mid-year, you got to use this routine to change it under utilities. Otherwise, the old transactions will not be flagged. And if you have any questions, there's this detail edit 1099 transaction window where you can see which transactions are being recorded to which 1099 box. And remember, it's not using document date to select your 1099s. It's using the payment date and the date it was fully paid. So make sure you apply all your invoices and your payables is clean before you do your 1099s. Okay? All right. So again, our support team is more than willing to help hold your hand through your 1099s, any of the processes, whether you need to get your smart list right, whether you need to update your forms, or whether you just need holding hands through the whole process. But try not to call them on the last day of January because several other people will be calling that day too. Plan ahead just a little bit. All right. If you ask for the PowerPoint, we're going to have all of the Learn links. So these used to be knowledge-based links. Last year's links still work. Last year's links will take you to these links. This is Microsoft's new Learn website. And so you notice they've made them permalinks. They have nice, pretty names. So this is the general ledger close. This is the payables instructions. These are the ones that say you have to do your 1099s first. This is your receivables instructions. This is inventory control. It actually talks about doing a physical inventory that you need to do first. I don't know why. These are the ones that are important. This is payroll. This is the payroll year-end update. This is the fixed assets. Definitely download this and look at this if you have fixed assets. And then if you use analytical accounting, this also has some instructions. And when I looked at all of those, they'd all had updated in October. So someone has looked over these and made sure that they make sense for this year in Microsoft's version of what they think you should do. All right, remember we're here to help. We have break fix assistance on our support Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. The support email is by far the best place to contact us. It actually is logged in our case system. A whole bunch of people look at that. So definitely email support rather than if you've got somebody's email address. Support is definitely much better. You know, a bunch of people look at support, particularly around year-end close time and around 1099 time. We have a bunch of people looking at that. And remember, we're here to help. Feel free to schedule our team to close with you. We can verify that you have drive space. We can make those archival backups. We can walk you through the close steps, make sure your posting types are right. We can close it on the server, which runs faster. And optionally, this year, we're going to have a housekeeping and disaster recovery checklist so you can check off the things that you want us to help housekeep. You know, let's deal with some bad POs. Let's clean out all sorts of things in addition to the paid transaction removal. And also have that conversation with your IT team about what we recommend for disaster recovery. And we can assist, obviously, with troubleshooting. Generally, we do those appointments at the end of the day. So, first thing in the morning or the end of the day, people have to be out. There is some limited night and weekend appointments, but we do charge extra for that. We have a night and weekend rate. But if you want that because you can't get people out of the system, or you're one of those 24/7 clients and you got to plan the whole manufacturing shutdown, coordinate with us and we can help you do that. All right. Questions. We have gotten to the end of the slides, people. Any questions? Hey, I got through that in 47 minutes. Not bad. So, Elise, I will send this over to you for you to send out to all the people once I fix my date mistake. Elise is like, I will deliver the video. Yeah. So close. There's always something I catch when I'm doing it. I was like, oops, forgot to do that. All right. If no one has any questions, I'm going to throw this up here. All Microsoft new features, every year they add a decent list of small fixes and features. So this QR code should take you to the vote page where you can see all the suggestions that people have made, including one that Jennifer put in 2 years ago about a new button on the fiscal periods window for a new year. Still haven't gotten that one up to approved yet, but we keep promoting that one. So if you're going to use GP for the next 5-6 years and you want some tweaks or some fixes, they're not going to put major things in, but every year they do some small fixes and some problems. QR for that. And thank you for watching. Again, our support email, we're all about our QR codes these days, like everybody else. But, the email for support reaches all of us. We now have a case tracking system in Acumatica. And it keeps track of all of our support cases, and a bunch of people look at the queue. All righty. Beautiful. I'll just hang out for another second here in case there's last questions people are typing. But it looks like we've got nothing. Have a happy holiday, and remember, GP, ride or die. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.